Okay, you guys, let's do this. It's going to be so professional. Like, so professional. Here we go. Well, welcome to the Live Support Podcast with your hosts, Michele and June and June Colson, a couple of clean comedians who support each other and others through comedy's wacky and winding roads. I hope you're ready. Get set. Let's go. Since podcasts have a catchy tune, we wrote this song for Michele and June. Clean comedians are best friends too. Oh, so good. And you never know what they'll say or do. Here we go, sing with me on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. We'll have a ball, with June, who's really tall. They have fun, interviewing comedians on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. Now it's time to start Live Support.
The Live Support Podcast is brought to you by the Hot Breath Comedy Network.
Wow, here's all a round of applause.
Welcome to the Live Support Podcast, the award-winning podcast. I'm your host, June Colson, here with Michele with one L, with a happy face behind her, VanDusen. Michele, what happened to the Help Wanted sign?
Oh, it's still there.
Well, did you get some help? Like, do you flip it to the happy face when you get help, and then it goes to Help Wanted when you don't?
Well, I put it to the happy face because I am so happy of who we have on our show today. And that's why I was like, he just makes me smile all the time. And so that's why happy face.
Oh, my
not everybody can have a really cool sweatshirt like you. So whatever.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to talk about this in a minute. But first, just before we came on here, Michele, I just want to talk. I took a few notes about the story that you were just telling me about your son. And let's just say you started out with, my son pulled an all-nighter at the Waffle House for and I quote, fundraiser. Okay, I'm a boy mom as well. And I don't know that if my son was out all night at the Waffle House, I would believe him that it was a fundraiser. So I'm not even sure where that came from. Then you said there was a random car in front of your house with Texas plates on it. Mm-hmm. And you assumed that it was for someone else, and you went on in your house, but the car never moved. Now, when I was in Texas with you, every time we went to my car, you walked around it and you checked underneath it to make sure that it wasn't like that there wasn't somebody bad in the back seat, or that there was a bomb or a booby trap or something. I don't know why you think I have those kind of enemies, like the Kentucky Mafia. But then in your own home, a car with Texas plates doesn't move from in front of your house and has a human in it. There's a person sitting in the car, and you just ignore that. But you check for bombs under my car, right? Right? Please explain to me what your line of thought was there.
Okay, so the all-nighter at Waffle House is a legit thing. Was a legit thing. I was just so mad at him for not telling us. Because I'm like, we like waffles. So my son is going to be going to Uganda in May for like a month or whatever. A month in May, he's going to Uganda for missions. Mm-hmm. And so the all-nighter was because another couple of people that are on his team was doing a fundraiser where if, when you buy your waffles and your whatever you're getting that day, a portion of the receipt will go to the missions group.
Nice.
And so so our son, he's been he sells his banana bread. So he does bread, mission bread is what he's calling it, but it's banana bread. And so he sells his loaves for like $5. So he brought some of those with, not enough, but it was for those other teammates. And so he
was
just
trying to sell banana bread at the Waffle House.
No, actually what it was some of the people that were on and then they were all having their fundraiser there. So he brought a couple loaves for just them and then went on from there. Anyway, so that was the all-nighter.
Yes.
Now, because he's in college and he has a lot of friends in college, and so he finished some courses, and how you have used books and then
Yes.
you pass those down or you sell them, whatever. So he had some books that he was going to be giving or selling. I'm not sure what the transaction was, but it was to another student, and that's who was sitting in front of our house. And it wasn't until like 2 hours later when I came back into the living room or whatever, and I looked, I thought the books were still here And my son, because he did the all-nighter, he was sleeping, not passed out. He was sleeping on the couch. So I woke him up and said, "Hey, did your friend ever stop by? Is he from Texas? Does he have a
Right?
red car?" And so I asked him all those questions, and he's like, "What?" And so
You
come to
knew all the
find out,
so you knew all the details about the vehicle. You knew that there was a man in the vehicle. You knew it was a red car. And you knew it had Texas license plate. So had it been a murderer and they killed you, you could have really shared all of that information with the detective trying to solve your
yes, because I
trying
would
to
have been
solve your
dead.
murder.
And they would have immediately have known because I knew all the information. They would have like put a little, wire in the
Yeah.
head. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if it was my
There it is.
murder, yes,
That's what I'm
that would
saying.
have
That's what I'm saying. Listen, okay. So our guest today,
silly.
there's actually an interrogation that I'm going to ask him about. Speaking of murders, there's an
Ooh.
interrogation that I'm going to ask him about here in just a little bit when we get him on. But Michelle, why don't you go ahead and tell us why you have that happy face up? Who is our amazing guest today?
Okay, so our guest today is an improv, stand-up, and a sketch comedian from Arizona. His dry bar special is scheduled to be released in 2022. Oh, this year, sometime this year, hopefully soon. And his first sketch album, Secret Asian Man, is available now. So let's welcome our funny friend, Brian Kohatsu.
Woo!
Thank you. That was
There
rousing.
he is.
Yep, that's our sound
Wow.
effects. Woohoo!
Sorry, I'm tired. I just picked up my son from the airport. He was in Uganda at a Waffle House, and
Yeah.
it was a long ordeal. Anyways, I don't want. This guy was supposed to pick him up in a Corvette, red Corvette or something. I don't know all the details. I was half
Had
asleep
Texas
when he pulled
plates.
up.
Maybe he had Texas plates on it.
hmm But they drove all the way to Uganda. That's the problem. So it's a long. I don't know if you made that drive. It's horrible.
It's a
Yeah.
It's a
long
little
haul.
rocky. It's a little
Yeah.
rocky. Yeah.
Well, Brian Kohatsu, she just said it. You're a little bit of everything, improv and stand up and sketch and all of those fantastic things. Michelle and I both know you from the Christian Comedy Association.
Mhm.
We just think you're absolutely fantastic, and we just want to jump in there and find out. So, when you first started doing any of those, really, the sketch, the stand up comedy, whatever. Who did you have in your life? Who was your laugh support? Who are the people who kind of helped you get started and support you along the way?
Early on, I'll go back a little bit further before that though. My dad was always like very like you should be a clown. That's what he used to say to me all the time. Which is weird because my Japanese father, I just assumed he was always like about, work and do good work and
Mhm.
work some more. He was a farmer, so it was always get up early and work. But he was always saying you should be a clown, you should be a clown, you should be a clown. I'm like, sure, whatever. Years later, I didn't start my comedy adventure until I started doing radio, which I was in my 30s by then. But when I did finally start doing stuff, there was a buddy of mine named John Mills, who is currently he works for the TV show NCIS Los Angeles. He works on that show, so I don't see him as much. But he used to do improv with National Lampoon when he was in his 20s, and there was some couple of audition things came up and he pushed me. He's like, you should go do this. And I wasn't a performer at all. So he encouraged me. But the main thing he said for improv was I went to an audition for an improv troupe, the first improv troupe I was ever in. And he was very adamant. He said, just commit to your character. That's all you have to do for improv. And I said, okay. He said, just commit. That's it. So that's what I did. I went and John was very from the get-go, and he wasn't even living here at the time anymore, so there was just kind of this quick phone call like, what do I do in an audition? He's like, so he's been super supportive from a long distance over the years now. So but that's when I got started was John. Like I said, he's still super supportive, and then I have a bunch of crazy people like you guys now that that are in my huge web of support, network of support, and et cetera, et cetera. So but was I supposed to say my wife? I think I'm supposed to say
Yeah,
my
go
wife
ahead and
on
say
that
that.
question.
Go ahead and say your wife. Go ahead and tell us
Whew.
how amazing and supportive she is.
When my wife found out what I was doing, she goes, "And who would be your laugh support?" And I said, "Of course you." Now my wife, I've known my wife for longer than most people should ever know anybody. I've known my wife since we were 7, so and
Wow.
we're in our 50s now. So that's a long time to fake laughing at somebody. So, but she does it. She stays with it. The eye rolling. I know her eyes are starting to get tired, but no, she's 100% behind anything because she didn't marry anybody who wanted to be a comedian. She ended up with somebody who ended up wanting to be a comedian. So she's very patient, but she's great.
How did that transition go? Because I'm kind of the same situation. I came to my husband almost, like I was coming out of the closet. I was like, I gotta tell you something, and please don't think less of me. And this is, it was difficult because my husband is very. Well, he was the fire chief at the time, right? So
Right.
everything was very straight and organized and had to make sense and had to make a profit. And then I'm like, hey, Jesus said I should be really funny, babe. This is what I'm going to do. So how was your transition when you brought this to your wife?
I mean, we're super supportive all the time of each other in anything that we do. And it kind of goes back to what my friend John said in terms of, commit to the character, but make commitments and keep your commitments. So when we first got married, my wife was again, we went through school together, but she decided after graduating, we got married right after she graduated college. And then she decided to become a professional golfer, and she had never really golfed before. So this is all in my set.
What?
Yeah. So she played basketball on scholarship and then graduated and then still wanted to do something athletic. And there was no WNBA. There was nothing at that time. So she decided to become a professional golfer, and she had never really played before. She played kind of a couple times, whatever. So she got good enough in a year, and then she ended up turning pro. So I, during that time period, was very supportive. So
yes.
You could call it payback, June. That's
Yeah,
the word you're looking for. But she was on the road for like 12 years. So very supportive. And we didn't have kids until after she got off tour. So then this next phase hit. It just naturally happened. She was all for it. Because it was just, I always worked a lot of hours anyways. I have a production company. And I've done that for 30 plus years. But so when I segued into this, it was kind of like a little bit of a time. I did a radio show, and from the radio show, then I got into improv. And then, so that time I was using for those other things got replaced. So I wasn't taking any more time. But the number one rule she gave me was, because the kids were little at that point, was, I think it was after the first year of doing comedy. She basically said, no more shows during the week if you're not getting paid, because that's time you can be home with the kids. Which really pushed me to go, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to get paid gigs,
Right. I don't want to spend more time with the kids. I just need
if
money.
If I want to get out of this house,
money.
Right. So if the kids are driving me crazy, I better have a gig that pays to go to. So, which ended up, so then it's just weekends at that point. I kind of stopped doing open mics, and some of the open mics here would pay $5-10, whatever, gas money. But, so that kind of set that in motion. But I think that pushed me a little bit harder my early years of comedy, without her realizing it, to get more paid gigs if I wanted to keep doing it and really kind of be serious about it. So, because what other than that, it's just, I'm a dad with my family at home and my kids waiting for me, and I'm hanging out at these horrible bar shows, with, comics can be different people.
Yes. Yeah.
When you're hanging out with them. So, but she's super supportive. Absolutely.
Michele,
she's going back on tour now. Because she's old enough to qualify for the senior tour. So she's been going out more. So now the kids are old enough. They can take care of themselves.
Have you ever paired like where she's golfing with comedy shows for you? So that way you're traveling at the same time, same place?
Did a fundraiser once together where she played, and then I did the, afterwards, basically hosted the event with the giveaways and all that. We used to in the past. Actually, we're trying to set up something coming up this summer where she's got an event coming up in Washington. So we're trying to get a show going up there. So
nice.
Make some money on the trip.
Very cool.
See, golfers don't make any money unless they finish in the money.
Ooh,
so it's like not like a professional basketball player that just makes money even if he misses every free throw and every shot he takes. It's like with tennis and golf, you have to place in the money or you don't get any money. So there's a lot of pressure on them to do well.
That's why comedians, we get paid beforehand. You get that check before you go on stage. Because if I do miss every shot and every free throw and I don't score at all, I still got the check. I may not ever be invited to that game again. But
$1 a laugh.
My funny and I'm running. So, okay. So when you got into comedy or improv, improv, you said commit to the character. Was a piece of advice that you've carried on. What about stand up? Is there anything that anybody has shared with you as far as stand up goes that you still to this day, that's something that's just concrete that you stick to that piece of advice?
To be honest, it's the same piece of advice, which I learned later on in improv, but basically you have to commit not just to the character, and to a degree, we're all a little bit of a character of ourselves on stage. Some people are more so of a character on stage, but it's a little bit, it's not, well, I mean, we do know comics are on all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
But so that little bit of character that you are on stage, you got to commit to being that person. But basically, to me, it's a commitment to the joke that you're telling. You have to commit to it in a way that you believe it's the funniest joke ever being told. And again, this is something I learned in improv. If you don't sell it like it's the funniest thing ever, the audience is not going to believe that it's the funniest thing ever. They're just going to roll their eyes too and go, well, if you halfway do the joke, they're going to go, well, he doesn't believe the joke's funny, so why should we? So that 100% commitment has to be in everything that you're doing, how you tell the joke, how you're going to present it to the audience, 100% giving to the audience of everything that you have, because hopefully they're giving you 100%. So as long as everybody's trying to give 100%, I think that's where. So it's really commit to the process all the way. Commit to the joke, commit to that punchline, commit to the act out, you got to commit. You guys, somebody, you guys have seen my wham joke, right? Have you seen that? Have you ever done the wham joke?
Go ahead and share a little bit with our listeners.
So basically the joke is that I go to a Wham concert, but this is after George Michael has passed away. And so it's only Andrew Ridgeley only does the parts of his song. So it's basically me just doing Wake Me Up Before You Go with just the backgrounds and then dancing around. So it's just, bang, bang. That's it. So but this goes on for a while I'm dancing. So if you don't, and I'm saying commit, and I'm in a chair and I can't really do the whole thing. Right. But if I fail on any part of that, it doesn't go over. The joke goes over well because I'm 100% committed to dancing on stage and singing the background lyrics. So that's a perfect example of commit to it. Because if I don't, it's flat. It's not going to go. Even that's a joke too. I can win over people who don't know who Wham is, which is probably nowadays getting more toward half the audience. But even when they're younger, they laugh because they get the premise. At least it's only one half of a duo when it's this. But so, yeah, that was, I think, the first joke I learned. You must commit to this or else you will fail miserably.
Yeah, especially anything with an act out. I had starting out, I had this cheerleader bit that I did, and I was very timid about it. Like I didn't want to go too much into the moves or the voice or whatever, because it just felt weird and awkward. But then I knew it was funny. It was funny, and I believe another comedian was like, you just got to go all in with it, And when I did finally just like let loose and do it, it was funny. Everybody was along for the ride. But you're right. If you don't believe it, then how's somebody else going to believe? I mean, Michelle is, Michelle's laid on the stage and rolled around and basically buffed it with her belly, and that's commitment, right, Michelle?
Or insanity. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
Now, I don't do that anymore. That I was younger, and I could get up a little easier.
Yes. Well,
so it better be funny so that they'll laugh longer, so you can get up.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a whole lazy Susan thing.
No, okay,
that's more me now.
So in improv, you gotta have support. As far as like. Yeah, everybody's got to be sold on it, right? Everybody's got to be kind of on the same page and that kind of deal. But as far as stand-up goes, because you kind of come with your crew and your support when it comes to that. What is your experience with stand-up? I know Michelle and I obviously we're each other's laugh support. We're there for each other, and we find that important. Do you think in stand-up it's just as important or not at all to have a support system around you?
It's a different type of support system versus improv. Improv, you're in the moment on stage together all the time. So you definitely have to make each other look better. And that's the whole key to improv is it's not about you. It's about making your scene partner look good. Whereas stand up, right, it's all about you at times, but that can be a bit much if you get, I don't know. I wrote the greatest joke ever. I'm the best comic ever. You need people in your life who are going to say that wasn't as good as you thought it was, and then look back at tape and go, oh, you were right. So yeah, definitely between stand-ups, I know like the most support I get from stand-up is everyone I came up with that is still doing comedy. Even if we don't see each other, we still text, email. We're in constant contact with each other and do kind of share our victories and our losses and our woes and everything else with each other. And we're definitely even some of these guys I saw a guy the other night I haven't seen in 9 years, and I was happy to see him, and he did great, and told him afterwards, that was great. It's so good to see you. And you're still doing it. And you're still, so that's nice. But out of that main crew, like Mike James, comedian Mike James, we travel all the time. And we support each other constantly in everything that we do. It's just nice to have that person where, if you're struggling, all the different struggles that come up while you're doing comedy, these are comedy problems I'm talking about, like, I can't get this premise to work, or the punchline's not working. And then at least you have somebody to lean on, not that you're asking them to fix the joke or anything else, but you kind of start talking through it. Maybe you see it from somebody else's eyes, why the audience isn't seeing it the way you're seeing it. But also, like, for us, like on the road, I mean, it's just more than that in terms of just accountability to each other when we're on the road. I mean, because again, the road, you're out there, and some of these places are weird. Just to stay safe and everything else. So yeah, no, support on so many levels, I think, is super important. So every comic should have at least one person, if not a network of people, so that's why CCA is so great. I mean, I know so many people now across the country. If I'm by myself, I can actually find somebody, in town or something.
Yeah. Michele,
Talk to, to hang out with.
as far as safety goes, would you be willing to, travel and just make sure that there's no suspicious activity around Brian's vehicle? Would you do that? Would you check for strange people with Texas plates outside, the hotel or what?
No, not for Brian, because he's a man.
Oh, okay.
That's a female thing. If he wants to blow up, that's
I
fine.
bring myself. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I like that you said accountability on the road. So like, you and Mike travel together for accountability, but at the same time, like your wife at the very beginning, she also held you accountable, because she was like, hey, no paid gigs, you can't leave the kids here, and I thought that was really neat, and such a good character on you and your whole family, you and your wife, that our family is first. And then while you are traveling, here you have another strong, godly man to keep you accountable. And I love that, that you're not out there just out and alone. And so what I'm hearing is it's really important that we all build a good community that strengthen us. Because yeah, you're right. There are some shows, there are some clubs that it's a little seedy. It's a little seedy, but if you're with your buddy, it's fine. It's fine then. It's not.
Recently, Mike and I were up in I won't say the town. Anyway, we're out of state, and we had like 2 nights of fantastic shows. On the third night, we were in a different city, and I mean, the minute he had been there before, I had not. So we were together on this, and we got there, and he says, do you want to? I was selling merch, which June is wearing. I told him, I said, I am not selling merch here, because as soon as we're done, we're leaving. I mean, it was shady. It was just like, let's get in and get out. Immediately it was like, good night. So, but we made that judgment call together.
Yes.
I will say this is hilarious. And a sidebar to everything. This place was not the greatest place on the earth. It's funny. We had great gig, and then this like just added on gig, and it was kind of just like this bar with pool tables, etc. At one point, Mike goes to the bathroom, comes back and says, "Have you been in the restroom yet?" I said, "No." He says, "You need to go." I said, "Okay, I'm not kidding you." When you walk in, it's really well lit. It's extremely clean. It's like you walked into some parallel universe, almost like heaven, because it was so bright and everything was white. And it was like, and then as soon as you open the door and walk back out, dingy bar. You know? Like, all right, should we hang out in the bathroom? It seems safer in there. So
I think it's the lighting is for the cameras. I think that's
It's
happening in
probably.
that. Yeah.
Yes, I would not doubt.
Oh, geez. Oh, that would be awful. That
And the person
Michelle,
running the show was out of the Matrix. So that's all I'm saying.
Oh, my
Now,
goodness.
I have another question. Do you find, because you started through radio and then improv, that when you do your stand up, and do you find that you're doing more characters when you're doing your stand up?
Um, No. I think yes and no. Like radio was a lot for me. Radio was a lot of me doing a lot of my different voices and things. That's how that
Mhm.
came along. It's the reason my friend picked me originally to be on the show because I did a lot of impressions and things. But and then improv allowed for a lot of, I mean, it's all character and improv. But when I started doing stand up, I mean, a lot of my sets about my family. So, but there's still some character stuff in there. Obviously, there's some big pieces that I do that are character driven, but I try to mix it up a little bit. A lot of the impressions I used to do, nobody cares about anymore. So, times move on. You got to learn new. It's funny because nobody knows the same things anymore. So if you pick a specific character to a show, not everybody's watching the same thing anymore. Netflix,
Right.
everybody's watching what they want to watch. Regular television, if anybody's watching regular television, there's other shows. But half the time people say, do you watch whatever? I say, no. And I'll say, do you watch whatever? And they say, no. So to try to do any voices or characters based on an actual thing,
Mhm.
that's a little rough
Yeah.
anymore, I think, as time goes on. Unless, because how many times, I mean, we're all sick of Christopher Walken and Arnold Schwarzenegger impressions because those seem to be the only two people left on the planet that everybody knows. So,
Yes. Yeah. What about Burt Reynolds though? He's a good one.
Yeah.
Good old
Well,
Burt Reynolds.
but Bert's gone. Bert's gone. The Trans Am's coming back, which is good. But yeah, I still enjoy my Burt Reynolds. I did that little bit, Burt Reynolds Celebrity Crank Call. I did that on the first radio show I ever did.
Mhm.
And then that kind of caught wildfire a little bit. And then when I went to All Comedy Radio, they were familiar with the bit when I went there, which was nice. That kind of got me in the door before I got me in the door. So, but yeah, I'm sentimental about Bert.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's so let's talk about that a little bit. So Secret Asian Man, it is a sketch album, right? That Brian Kohatsu put together. Secret Asian Man. The name is fantastic, which is also the name of your dry bar. Is that correct?
No.
Oh no. Okay. What's the
No.
name of the dry bar when it comes
My
out?
dry bar will be called, when it comes out eventually, I hope, it will be called Japanese Bedtime Story.
Japanese. Okay,
Ooh.
so then that refers to my hoodie,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
All right. So the Japanese Bedtime Story, guys. Now, Brian, can they buy this on your website? This sweatshirt, is it
That's on my
available?
website. Yep.
Okay. So
All the merch is
your
on there.
and the website is
Brian Kohatsu.com.
and for those of you guys
and just go to the
watching,
merch
it's
page.
scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but it's
There you go.
Brian Kohatsu. Kohatsu is spelled
The traditional
KOHATSU.com.
spelling.
Yes, the traditional spelling of Kohatsu. And I tell you, on the side, there's some Japanese writing.
Mhm.
It's specifically your name
It is my last
on
name.
there.
Yep.
Oh, your name.
That-
Oh, Brian,
Yep.
that's what you meant. I thought you meant it was my name. I thought it was
no.
customized just for me.
This is just June Colson in Japanese.
It says June Colson, and no, and actually, it's so you have this image of a dragon and 3 amazing pigs at the bottom. By the way, Michelle, thanks for asking. The pig that my family lost has been found, so he did come back
Oh,
from the
good.
market. He did wee all the way home. So actually, I think it's a girl. But anyway, back to Brian Kohatsu, our guest. All right, so you can get this sweatshirt on his website. And the name of his dry bar when it comes out, be watching for it, is the Japanese Bedtime Stories. This hoodie is like my favorite hoodie ever. So y'all just check it out. It's super cool. The characters are really awesome on it. But back to the sketch album as well. So
Yes.
there's some friends of ours. So that's one place you've been able to use your characters. We have friends of ours
Talk
that's
about this
on
one.
there. Yes. So Rhonda Corey, we know Rhonda Corey's on there, and Mike James is on there. And I wrote down a few of my favorites. Okay. So Billy's Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
Y'all have to listen to that. Just the very first encounter Billy has with the waitress, that just absolutely cracked me up. Home of the Hawks, the national anthem on Home of the Hawks is
Oh, really?
beautiful. You got to listen to the national anthem on that.
Wow, thank you for liking Home of the Hawks,
I
because
loved Home of the
that was up for
Hawks.
debate in the house.
I love Home of the Hawks. Just the national anthem itself brought it
Just so
home
you
for
know,
me.
real quick on that, June, that was the first sketch I did because it didn't require anybody else. So I did that one first. And because it was the first one, I wasn't really being ultra critical about editing. And
Yes.
so my son listened to it and he goes, huh, okay. And no real reaction, right? Then my daughter came home and my wife was home and they listened to it. And my daughter's reaction to that one was, because they don't understand sketch for audio only, like the old,
Yes.
this type of album. Anyways, my daughter says, is this supposed to be funny? So it just cracked me up. Anyways, that one, it's original to what you're hearing now, has been chopped up to the point, and then at the 11th hour, I literally added a couple things to make it what it is now. So I'm
Yes.
glad somebody likes it.
No, I loved it. Alphabet Soup, Ron Corey is featured on that.
Ron is all over that one.
Tribute to Jack Black. That just makes my heart happy because he's one of my favorite people on the planet. But my real question was the interrogation of Denise.
Interrogation of Denise.
Would there be a character in that maybe you based off of a Christian comedian with a Southern accent that seemed capable of murder? Would there have been maybe, Brian? I felt something when I was listening to the interrogation of Denise.
Was it because the impression was dead on?
Potentially. It's a voice I've heard before. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
Maybe. You don't know, June. We may never know. That's a mystery in itself.
It is a mystery in itself. Well, it's no mystery that Brian Kohatsu, you have been an amazing guest today. Again, if you want to find Brian Kohatsu, I just pulled a Michelle. She messes up people's names. Brian Kohatsu. I've never said his name wrong. Maybe it's, I'm still rattled by Denise. Maybe that's what it is. It's www.briankohatsu. That's KOHATSU.com. Kohatsu Comedy, Facebook, you can find him there. Instagram, Brian Kohatsu. So yeah, go check out Brian Kohatsu. He is pretty wicked awesome. And if you want to watch this, if you're listening to us, because you can listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can also see us if you would like and see this amazing sweatshirt on the Creative Motion Network. And we are also, and that's on Roku TV. We are also on YouTube. And what's the other, Michelle? Say it.
Vimeo.
Right on Vimeo. Well, y'all, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Laugh Support Podcast. Brian Kohatsu, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
It's been great. I'm June Colson. Remember, Jesus and Junebug loves you. And Michele VanDusen, tell him goodbye.
Goodbye. And thanks.